Boogeyman Ben.
Hey everyone, it's Boogeyman Ben. Hope everyone's doing well and everyone had a great day. Thanks so much again for joining me for Boogeyman Ben's Horror Zone. Today is going to be a return of a segment that I started back in 2013. This was a segment that I did for several months in 2013, but I haven't revisited it since because it didn't seem to be very popular on this channel. What I'm talking about is Comic Book Wednesdays. So every Wednesday, got my bag right here, I go to Flying Colors Comics. And pick up my, in my saver, my weekly saver. I go and pick up comic books, and I've been really bad about it the last 6 months. Just there was a lot going on, and I just kept forgetting to go pick up my books until I had a stack about this high, and I had to pay $100 to get them all. So, and the problem I've been having recently is I just haven't had enough time to read all these books that I've been buying. So this segment is going to actually help me in a lot of ways because I'm going to come to this segment prepared, talking about the books that I've been reading, and also just showcasing the books that I get on a weekly basis. In the past, I would do like a comic book history where I would talk about maybe comic books that I've had in my collection since I was a kid, or series that I really loved as a kid that don't exist anymore, or one-shots that were like, from movies that I really loved. So I did a lot of that, and I'm not really going to focus on that because I've really condensed my comic book collection since I stopped doing those videos. So pretty much everything that I focused on in those videos I've pretty much already done. There is two exceptions, and this is something going back to something that Arkham Knight 84, who is a great guy and someone that I used to converse with briefly back and forth on things like horror movies and comic books. And he asked me what my favorite comic book hero was. So what I've decided to do, and I'm not going to do it this week, maybe next week or the week after, but I'm going to do a segment on my favorite comic book hero and my favorite comic book villain. And I'm really looking forward to those segments, but I really want to work on them. So for this week, I'm just going to talk about the books that I picked up today. A couple of the books I'm already reading, or I need to get caught up on, so bear with me. And then there's a couple of new books that I picked up today. So I hope everyone looks forward to this segment. Please stay tuned. So the first book I want to focus on is Hulk, number 14, Red Ross versus Jade Genius. I think the art is fantastic. I've always been a fan of Mark Bagley. He used to draw for Spider-Man for many years. Just was a huge fan of his artwork, and I love the fact that he's drawing the Hulk now. And this is a series that I'm pretty far behind on. I think the last issue I read was 6, so I have like 8 issues to catch up on. But always been a fan of the Hulk, and really love this series. And this Comic Book Wednesday segment is really going to help me get caught up on these books. The next book I want to talk about is Star Wars number 3. Now this is a series that I am caught up on. This is a series that takes place right after the original Star Wars film, and our Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, and it takes place in between that film and Empire Strikes Back. Like, I love how they have the opening scroll like in the movies, where it lays out like what's come before, and just like in the movie series. And the art is fantastic. And this book is being put out by Marvel Comics. And I'm really excited to read this book. And they have several Star Wars themed comic books out right now. One is solely focused on Darth Vader, and that's another one that I want to pick up. The next book I got is Walking Dead. This is issue number 140, and it's another series that I'm pretty far behind on. I believe I'm like almost 15 issues behind on this series. I know a lot of people aren't a fan of the black and white, but I've always liked black and white comics, and it's not so much the visuals in this, it's the story. So unlike the other books I showed where the visuals pop out at you because of the color, it's just such a good story. But yeah, again, I'm pretty far behind on this book series, and I need to get caught up. Now the next two books I want to show are brand new books. I know one of them just came out today, and that is Tales of Re-Animator. Now they had several covers, but this one I love because it reminds me of the old EC comics, and I just absolutely love that cover. I've seen the movie Re-Animator once, and I really liked it, and I've always been meaning to pick it up, and I need to actually buy it. So I will be buying that movie very, very soon. I also want to see the 2 sequels they made to it. Huge fan of Jeffrey Combs. I just think he's awesome, and everything I've seen him in I loved. And this just seemed like a really fun book, and I had to pick it up and add it to my saver. Some of the art side of the book. Seems like it fits in tone with the film series. So I'm really anxious to dive into this one. And my final pickup is The Fly Outbreak. Now, I first heard about this book series on Arrow in the Head, which is a horror site I go to every so often to see if there's any cool horror news, you know, movies, comics, toys, anything like that. And they had talked about this. Now, for the longest time, they were talking about making a sequel to, I don't believe it was going to be, because The Fly came out, the remake of The Fly that Cronenberg did came out in '86, and then the sequel to that came out in '89. And there was always going to be talk about this movie called Flies, which was actually going to be a direct sequel to the Cronenberg film and was going to ignore the sequel with Eric Stoltz. But this book seems to pick up from where the second movie left off, just by looking at it. I don't know a lot about it. I love the cover. I love the flies, and you know, you got the pod right there, and it really seems to be fitting in tone with the movie series, and it almost seems to be what a sequel would have been had they decided to make a sequel to the second film in the series. And the artwork in this is fantastic. I mean, that's Eric Stoltz, that's Daphne Zuniga. I mean, they look exactly like they did in the second film, which came out 25 years ago. So it's pretty friggin' amazing. And I'm really excited to read this book. So I want to thank everyone for taking the time to watch this video and let me showcase some of the new comic books that I've picked up. So these comic book segments, Comic Book Wednesday segments, are going to be, you know, me focusing on books, talking about, you know, books that I love, giving a little bit of synopsis on some of the books I'm collecting. You know, I plan to be caught up on a lot of these books as these segments go on. I also will be focusing on pretty much anything I buy at Flying Colors Comics, because I go there quite a bit, and sometimes I buy toys, like the Joker action figure that I did a video on recently. But I'm just curious what people think about this segment. I really like to hear what everyone's feedback is. And again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later. Take it easy. Peace.